Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Business from the Bass Boat podcast on the Serious Angler Network. Guys, great show tonight. But first things first here, I wanted to talk a little bit about what is kind of up and coming with rec lending. Don't have all the details yet, but just be on the lookout. There is a really big giveaway that I think folks are going to want to be a part of. It's a good way to be ready to refinance when rates do kind of kick back down if you are financing a boat or an RV. So just be on the lookout the next couple of weeks here for details around that. But the giveaway strong. We're talking entry fees, I guess would be a tidbit of things. So for those of you tournament anglers and non-tournament anglers, there's a lot of awesome prizes that will be included on this giveaway. So just wanted to tease that a little bit. But it's fall, or it's beginning to be fall here in Idaho. It was 50 degrees this morning. So we're starting to get some of those colder temps, and this is just a great time to be outside, but especially in the fishing world. We all know that these fish put on the fall feed bag, smallmouth, largemouth, and things get rolling. And so a lot of fun, a lot of schooled up wolf pack activity to come. So super excited for this fall and fishing, and I'm actually headed out this week to go pre-practice on a lake in Washington, or part of the Columbia River there. So excited for that. But without further ado, what I'm going to be talking about today, solo show. We're just going to break down the Elite Series schedule in 2024 and compare it to the MLF Bass Pro Tour schedule. So would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. I'm curious on which schedule you think is better would be the biggest thing. So comment below if you're on YouTube. If you are on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to leave us a review, but there's no way to comment. On Spotify, I believe you can. We'll make a poll on Spotify. I think there's a way to do that. But anyways, would love to hear your thoughts on which schedule you would rather fish, whether it be the MLF Bass Pro Tour and the Elite Series. These are just the two that I'm saying are our current highest level pro tournaments. I think that's fairly easy to argue that these two are the top. You have to qualify to get into them. They're the highest entry fees. Well, highest entry fee, highest payout from an overall season standpoint. So that's why I'm kind of comparing these two. It's pretty well known that they are the top of the top tier when it comes to professional bass fishing. So to start things off, we will bring in the Bassmaster Elite Series schedule on a shared screen here. Those of you on podcast, I'll be talking through it all. But anyways, so Elite Series schedule just got released here. The 2024, the big probably changes from a traditional schedule is we don't have the Florida start. Always, for a really long time there, the Elite Series has always started its season in Florida on those famed fisheries that they always go back to. Not to say that they're not going back to them again later in the year, but they normally, that's where things kick off, right? It's the first kind of event of the year. Everyone looks forward to it, but at the same time, it's kind of the same old when it comes to Florida for the most part. So cool to see they're starting at Toledo. February 22nd is the first Derby. So really the end of February. So good long break for the Elite Series guys. Gosh, I mean, realistically, from August to February, that's long time in there. I mean, we're talking 5-6 months of a break. So awesome for those guys, I guess, for some perspective, to kind of have that whole fall off. I know for me, as with the background here, we've got the deer and antelope on the wall. I enjoy hunting, and so I'm sure I know a lot of Elite Series guys do as well, and on the BPT. So kind of an interesting deal that there's just not much fall professional bass fishing. I think that's definitely a story with all of this. I mean, both these seasons are really from February, the Bassmaster Elite Series case, the end of February, really through August. So tight together there. And the other big thing with the Elite Series, you notice back-to-back derbies, which I like. I think as a fan, it's fun to watch those back-to-back, watch a storyline if an angler's hot from one tournament to the next. I think overall it's super smart on Bass's perspective, both for limiting expenses for their crews running these events, as well as the tournament anglers themselves of traveling to these events. When you have a Toledo Bend and a Lake Fork being a couple hours apart in Texas, it makes it easy. Yes, it's a grind to go 2 weeks in a row, but boom, boom, you get 2 events over with, and it's a grind for those 2 weeks, but then you have a little bit of a break. You can roll into the next one. So I think that's a huge story on the Elite Series is a bunch of back-to-backs this year. I mean, you look at they go from Toledo Bend to Lake Fork. Both of those should be big bags, right? We're talking pre-spawn, uh, big fish in both of those places that time of the year, especially. Should be some really big bags. And then there's what's not on here, right? Is the Classic is smushed in there in between that Lake Fork event and Harris Chain. But it's the third week of March, right? So I think there's a pretty good gap there. But again, leaves it easy for the anglers, right? They start in Texas. You got the 2 derbies in Texas. If you made the Classic, you head up to Oklahoma. That doesn't happen. If you didn't make the Classic, then you've got a big break, and then you head down to Harris Chain and St. Johns River back to back, both in April. So Florida in April will be awesome. I don't think we've seen that in a long time anyway. Don't remember a tournament where there was a Florida April event. So post-spawn should be really cool in Florida to see how those guys break those places down. Completely different. Harris Chain, St. Johns River, obviously all these places so far, famed bass fisheries. Elite Series has been to all these places many times. So all of those, I'm good with the changeup. I think I do get a little bit sick of watching the Elite Series go to the same place, but at the same time, it's kind of the historic value, right? Like it's so historic to see Elite Series guys on Toledo Bend, on a Lake Fork. It's kind of in your memory. It's the place where these things happen. So I like to see the new stuff, but at the same time, I understand the importance in the history. Not to mention on the number side, right? Bass is going in and creating relationships with these towns, with these event venues where there's the benefit to going back over and over. It means a lot to those organizations and everyone involved from the business side to continue that relationship. So I understand it, but kind of Harris Chain, St. John's. So we've got, February back to back, 2 weeks, and then Classic back to back in April, Harris Chain, St. John's. Then a little bit of a gap, but again, still like thinking about on a map how far these guys, from Florida to South Carolina, it's not horribly far. So then you're in Lake Murray in South Carolina in May. That should be awesome. Watching Lake Murray this last year was incredible to see how diverse it was. Guys out scoping, guys, big top waters on the bank, just a ton of action, super healthy fishery. So I'm glad to see that they're going back there in South Carolina. Lake Murray, just absolutely incredible from this year's events. So glad to see that. Then they go back to Alabama in June. So hot time to be in Alabama, starting to get to that really hot time on Wheeler and Smith Lake. Again, another back-to-back, both in June there, June 13th to the 16th, and then June 20th. That's not quite back-to-back. They've got a week between. And then Lewis Smith Lake, the 27th through 30th. That should be awesome to see. We haven't seen the elites on Smith Lake in a little while. So excited to watch that one go down. Again, both of these will be post-spawn. Summer might start to be grindy, but I think the spotted bass should play in Smith. So excited to watch that. And then in both of these schedules, something that's interesting is the July being off, which I mean, it's kind of nice for the elites. Like you think about this, you kind of burn hot from the end of February through May, or through I guess through June, through the end of June. But then you have July off, and then you've got your 2 Northern Swing Derbies up in New York. You run up to Champlain, run to St. Lawrence, 3 hours apart on those two. They're back to back, which is nothing new. Elite Series though in on the St. Lawrence is out of Waddington this time, so further in the river on August 15th through the 18th. So the lake won't be nearly as accessible as in this year's event for guys. I mean, certainly guys can still make that run out there, but it's kind of a gamble because of your timing on having to run back through. And so you won't see guys maybe go as far out into the lake as they were this year because they had the access right there. So that should be fun to watch. More of the river play and longer runs for sure on those guys launching out of Waddington. I think that's kind of cool about some of these places too, is going somewhere different on the lake or on a place like that where it is many miles of difference on whether they go out. And so it does change people's game plans, right? If they go to the same ramp every time, kind of you might get locked into what you've done in years past. So really, to me, the Elite Series schedule, kind of to recap, the biggest changes is not starting in Florida in April. I think that's an interesting thing. The back-to-back, I mean, just really the back-to-backness of these events. They've got 3 or so times where they are fishing back-to-back. I think it saves everyone money. I'm a fan of it. I enjoy watching it. I understand it's a grind for that time frame, but then there's time off. And the season's really neck down into a 6-month window. So got a lot of time outside of the Elite Series. So kind of interesting from that perspective. But that's really the breakdown on the Elites. See if I can bring in now the BPT tour. Let's see. Share screen. Okay. So on the BPT front, very interesting to me. They're both starting at Toledo Bend, but the BPT guys will be there about 3 weeks before the Elites are there. So, gosh, especially thinking if you're an Elite Series guy getting ready to fish Toledo early in the year, you know, you've got that cabin fever. It's winter. I'm sure guys will be watching this event pretty in depth as far as on the live of how today's tournament fishing is. On Toledo Bend to start things off, then Santee Cooper in February should be absolutely lights out. Really big fish event there. On to Lay Lake in Alabama in March. The BPT definitely has more of that traditional, like one tournament every month, one tournament every 3 weeks, you know, maybe a 2-week window if it's kind of a prime time of the year, but really a traditional spread out of events when it comes to the MLF BPT. Dale Hollow, I think that will be an awesome one in April to see. I think that should be you might still have some, yeah, probably in Tennessee. You've got a spawning deal going on at Dale Hollow, but Clearwater, that lake, I think, is just something that's always intrigued me, being kind of more of a Western guy. Just would seems to be the style that I would really like to fish. Love to get there someday. Eufaula, Oklahoma in April to May. You kind of saw how big that place can be. Definitely a big water place. Eufaula seems to be getting hit a lot here lately. So cool to see that with the BPT guys in April into May. And then another couple of weeks, they also go to Florida later, right? The Kissimmee Chain in May. So, and that's the heavy hitters event, but a May tournament in Florida. So we're not seeing that early swing into Florida in either situation here. The BPT seems to hit Texas more often early, it seems like, over the last couple of years. So cool to see Florida in May from that perspective. And then June, this is a new one, the Chowan River. Not sure how to say that, but North Carolina. So Edenton, North Carolina. I know nothing about that place. I think this river is a really big river. So there should be some folks making long runs, but this is cool to me. I mean, this is somewhere where there's something new. I think that's, I guess, one negative that I would put towards the Bassmaster schedule. They've hit every single one of these lakes before many times for the most part. Maybe not a Lake Murray. That one's fairly new, right? But like they hit it this year. So something new. I think that's cool that BPT is doing that. Never heard of that place. That's like one of those where like you probably see some guys go pre-practice it, especially they don't have any knowledge of running on it, those kinds of things. So I think that's a really, really cool one to me. The James River in Richmond there, has gotten, some guys have talked just awesome stuff about that place. I know there's been some Bassmaster Opens there. I think BPT, or maybe it was the Pro Circuit, went there this last year. So definitely some action has been there before, but you've got a title place and just that East Coast kind of swing. So definitely, I mean, looking at this schedule, they start in Texas, then they're South Carolina, back to Alabama, Tennessee, Oklahoma, kind of that swing back. And then it's really Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, like East Coast-esque, right? Like north, they're just working their way up. So James River, that's the end of June. Again, another just nothing in July on the BPT as well. July is just kind of an off time frame. And then they roll into the St. Lawrence in August. So that is the BPT schedule. So BPT is 8 events, and then obviously Red Crest being at Lay Lake. That's the March tournament. So the championship, Red Crest, is March 14th through 17th, and on the Elite Series Classic is the following week. So nice to see that they're both not on the same weekend, as there have been in the past. I think that helps the industry in general, helps for viewership. Glad to see that those aren't overlapping, just because you have that benefit. So really, I think a solid schedule overall. Same old with some of these places, but some new stuff involved with the BPT. And yeah, I mean, kind of has more of that traditional feel. It's a little bit of a longer schedule because they start in that first week of February in comparison to the Elite Series starting in like that third week. So a little bit of a longer season. But again, they close things up a little bit earlier in August too. So similar though. I mean, 6th to 7th month season on the pro stuff. Right now, a lot of these guys also fish, whether it be an opens division or in BPT's case, a Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit or a Toyota Series. So certainly some of these guys will fish into the fall, but I mean, that core schedule being kind of that time frame to me is just like it's kind of a dream for guys who hunt for sure. And I'm sure there's also guys who are like, man, I want to be fishing in the fall, which I like fishing in the fall. I also like to hunt. So there's kind of that those things are competing right now. But the way kind of what I call semi-pro fishing is your championships are in the fall. So you better be fishing a lot in the fall, which I get a little bit annoyed with, but like, my fall is pretty hectic with the Toyota Series championships, some ABA championships and those kinds of things because of that. But teach their own on that kind of stuff. I just want to do a quick breakdown comparing the two schedules. And for folks out there, I'm curious, what would you rather fish? Do you think you'd rather be fishing the BPT? Not saying leagues aside, like not saying this league or that league. Formats are similar now, right? I mean, everything's a 5-fish format. But anyways, just schedule-wise, would you rather be fishing the 2024 Bassmaster Elite Series schedule or the 2024 MLF BPT schedule? So comment below, shoot us a DM on the Serious Angler podcast, and tell us which schedule you would rather fish. But folks, hope you have a good week, and we roll into fall here. Things are starting to cool down. Be on the lookout. We've got a couple of awesome shows lined up with some brands, some new brands in the industry, as well as some old favorites coming on here. So got some awesome guests, and tune in next week, folks. Business from the Bass Boat, Serious Angler platform, and all that we've got going. Certainly check out our website. Something I guess we don't plug a lot of, but check things out, rate, review, all that good stuff, and have a good week.